To tune or not to tune? That is the question. All right, guys, welcome back to the 991 build series. Today we're talking tuning to the ECU of the car. So I know there's a lot of debate out there. Go look at the Renless forums, go look on the comment section of any videos that relate to this. A lot of opinions about whether it makes any sense whatsoever to tune a naturally aspirated engine. On the side of people that say it's not worth it. The main argument comes down to what I think is probably return on investment around horsepower. Obviously, a naturally aspirated engine is going to have much less room, if any, for horsepower gains depending on the engine. So in the case of my 991, it's a 3.8 liter, naturally aspirated flat six, runs 400 horsepower stock. And so most of the time the argument against is that for the expense and the investment, you're not going to really see a lot of horsepower gains in that car. Conversely, if you had a 991.2 or a turbo variant of 911, then you're gonna see massive horsepower gains, in some cases hundreds of horses. So I think that's where most people come from as it relates to why you wouldn't spend the money to tune a 991.1 Carrera S with an NA motor. That said, my reasoning for doing it is a few things. So I'll walk you through those, okay? So obviously I've decided to tune the car in case you didn't realize as part of this video where I'm going. I went with the Cobb tune. This is the Cobb Accessport version number 3. So basically it is this little device that you see here. This plugs into the OBD2 port on your car and allows you to do a software tune on the car. I'll take you through some of the reasons why I decided to do that and sort of how it works. So reason number one, and first and foremost, I think is important, is price. I actually happened to get an amazing deal on this unit. Thanks to my good buddy Alex. He was out browsing the forums and Facebook groups, knew that I was thinking about a Cobb tune, shot me a link to a post on the Obsessed Garage Marketplace. For those of you who are familiar, Obsessed Garage is a detailing car channel Matt Mormon runs. They've got a Facebook group that's a marketplace. Someone was selling the Accessport V3 for a 991.1 Carrera S. So already set up for that car, unmarried, meaning no longer attached to his car because he's gonna trade it for what I'll say is over half off, let's just put it that way. So given that investment level, I immediately had interest. And so I'll talk about the other reasons why I think it's really helpful, and then I'm gonna install it on the car. I'm gonna take you through that. I'm gonna do before and after drives, and we're gonna find out together if it's worth it, frankly. But the reason I think it's worth it at about half the cost that I got it for is horsepower gains are achievable. So from what I understand, you can get maybe 20 to 30 horsepower. So when it's all said and done, the car hopefully will push more like 420. So that's number one, it's just pure power and torque. More importantly for me is the version 3 of the Accessport for the 991 comes with, if you get this model, comes with a PDK mapping feature. So basically what it allows you to do is to alter the personality of the PDK system. It changes things like shift point and kind of the rev component of where the car will shift. A lot of people have described it as basically taking normal mode up to sport, sport up to sport plus, and sport plus up to the hold on like you're in trouble kind of mode, for track use and things like that. So it really supposedly just changes the personality of overall, kind of how the PDK responds from a shift point perspective, from a firmness perspective. So it has elements of changing the shift firmness to give you more just tactile feedback, kind of physical feedback when you're shifting. So that's kind of a more detailed way of saying the overall personality of the PDK transmission, which I have on my car, from what I understand, changes pretty dramatically with the Cobb tune in particular. Theirs is very plug and play and what I'll call off the shelf. Not that there aren't some others that are like that, but Cobb really prides themselves on being very user-friendly and DIY. So you literally take this device, you plug it in, and after 10-15 minutes on your own, you can install this to your car and then pick from a whole bunch of off-the-shelf maps that they produce. So they produce maps that are staged depending on what upgrades you have. So obviously stage 0 is your car's pretty stock. 1, 2 moving up, or kind of like, hey, you've done exhaust stuff, you've done headers, you've done a plenum, you know, depending on the mods, you can kind of match that with a stage. They do tunes that are specific to octanes. So luckily here in Atlanta, we have tons of access to 93 octane fuel. So you can put on maps just specific to 93, which give you a lot more power gains, take advantage of that higher octane fuel. You can, you know, go sport, you can go hyper aggressive, you can go valet mode, which will actually only allow the car to rev over a, you know, very low limit and then stop there and go to the next gear so that valet can't go joyride with your car. So, you know, maybe 10 to 15 different off-the-shelf maps with a lot of data and detail on their website about what each one will do and how it will change the characteristics of the car. So really that is, to me, kind of one of the biggest bonuses of the Cobb system. I know several others do this as well, but that's what really gravitated me towards that was A, PDK personality change, B, horsepower gains, albeit not huge, but there will be some, and then C, kind of the user-friendly accessibility of plug and play off the shelf, and then couple all that with a really good deal on the unit, and I was sold. So what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna take you through the install, how to marry it to the car, how to get a map installed. We're gonna pick one to kind of test out. I'm gonna do some before and after driving videos as well. So hopefully I can take you along on the journey of experiencing this and understanding, is it really worth the investment? So stay tuned for that, and we'll get started in the garage. All right, guys, so we're gonna get the Cobb tune installed in the car. So I'm gonna walk you through the process of how to do that, and then I'm gonna take you out on the road and give you some of my thoughts on kind of a before and after. I'm not gonna film before. I think anyone who owns a Carrera S, really just any 991, kind of understands what the PDK feels like to start. But I will share my thoughts on what I think has changed and kind of the overall feel on a drive, and explain ultimately whether I think this was worth it. Okay, so the unit bought secondhand, like I said, I got a pretty good deal on it. So what comes in this is obviously the Accessport. So we're gonna hook this up via this cable. So this has an OBD2 port cable. You're gonna plug that in basically to your OBD port, which should be right here behind this access door, and then we'll fire it up and you know, get to installing a map. Okay, so we've got the access port plugged into the OBD2 port down below and fired it up. And the first thing that is a good thing is that it's asking me to install this to my vehicle. So if you do buy one of these aftermarket, keep in mind that you need to confirm, you know, probably in writing with the person selling it to you that the device is unmarried in that it's been uninstalled from their car. So the person I bought this from had a 991.1 2014 Carrera S, the same car I have, and was basically taking off all kinds of modifications for trade-in. And, you know, so I just asked those questions. There's a great section on Cobb's website about buying these secondhand that has all kinds of tips and advice, but that's definitely the big one, which is be sure this is unmarried. Otherwise, you cannot install it to your car. And Cobb can help there, but I think you have to ship them the device, and there's a whole bunch of delay there. So it is asking me to install. I'm gonna go ahead and hit OK. Then you get three options. You can either install to the ECU and PDK, or just to the PDK. So we're going to install both ECU and PDK. I'm going to hit OK there. Then it's going to ask me to confirm that my vehicle matches. It is in fact a 991.1S. Then I'm going to pick the ECU map that I want to load. Economy is the greatest fuel economy. You can certainly load that, I guess, if you're going on a road trip. I think sort of defeats the purpose of this device. Stage 0 is really your just standard kind of factory settings. That's what's already on the car. Then you've got a stage 1, which basically is, you know, no aftermarket intakes or any craziness, you know, really pretty much stock setup on the car. And you've got an option for 93, 91, or 100 octane. We happen to have a lot of places, I'd say 75% of places or better in Georgia are 93. So I'm going to take advantage of that. That map is supposed to give somewhere around 5 or 6% increase in torque, about a 10%, 11% increase in horsepower. So definitely something that I'm hopefully is playing out. So it's now asking me to make sure that the car is hooked up to a charger, battery charger, which it is. This can take a little while, so they want to make sure this your car doesn't die in the middle of doing this. Otherwise, you have to reflash the ECU. It is connected. We're going to turn off the headlights, which it does advise. Climate controls we will turn off, and then we're going to proceed. So generating vehicle data, and it's going to do its thing. So this does take a little bit of time. I'll kind of check back in here with you as we finish the progress on the ECU tune to start. All right, so the install is starting. It's kind of cycling through, it's making a bunch of little beeps and stuff. That's all very normal. That is part of the system kind of doing its thing. And obviously this is potentially going to take a little bit of time. I think this is kind of initialization, and then we're going to go from there. But you do not want to turn off the vehicle. You do not want to unplug this. You want to let it do its thing and kind of go up through those percentages. You can see now it's moving. So maybe this will only take a few minutes, but we're going to let that wrap, and then we're going to switch over to the PDK tune. All right, guys, so that only took, no kidding, like 4 minutes to do the ECU. So that's complete, and now it's asking me just to confirm that I, in fact, have a 991 with PDK, which I do. So we're going to hit that, and then we are going to pick a option for the PDK. So I've been a little on the fence here. So just to kind of run you through these, aggressive sounds like what it is. It's aggressive. High torque aggressive, from what I understand and talking to people that have this, said it is too much. Maybe if you're going to track this thing, do like an autocross or whatever. So I think we're going to hold off on that one for now. Can always put more on there if I want later. OEM Plus, that's technically the build I'm doing, to be fair. So that might be a good one, but maybe not quite as much. Sequential Style has kind of some changes in the way the car shifts with a floor shifter, things like that. A little bit more of like a manual feel. To me, I use the PDK paddle, so that doesn't matter too much. Sport obviously is kind of what it sounds. It's going to be between OEM Plus and aggressive, and then simulated stock, which of course we're not trying to keep it stock. So I think for the purpose of this video, I'm going to just jump in head first here and go to aggressive on the PDK. That should have some of the most personality change. And, again, with kind of the NA motor, for me, the point was to really do something that's going to change the personality of the car from a PDK standpoint. I think that's where the real value is on a .1 if you're not in a turbo situation. So we're going to let that install as well. Same process. We're going to get some flashes, some beeps, things like that. It's going to do its thing, and then we will come back when this is complete, and we'll do a drive video, and I'll tell you guys what I think. So this is still going about 20%, but while we wait on that, I'm going to take you guys through these PDK maps just in detail. So Cobb Sport is basically taking the minimum shift points and increasing those. It is doing race start, which is basically launch control. If you don't already have that, this car does have launch control. Shift firmness, which is the one I'm actually pretty excited about, is increased, and then the continuous slip is decreased. So it should shift harder and faster, essentially, and at higher points in sport. Aggressive is basically all of that, plus an even further increase in maximum shift points and decrease in shift time. So we'll shift even higher from a RPM standpoint and faster. And then high aggressive torque basically increases the clutch pressure and the maximum shift points even higher. That one does come with a note that you have to do all kinds of stuff to take that off. So again, that one seems a little bit over the top, but to each their own. Sequential Style, it's got reverse shift stock, idle creep, dual pattern neutral, kick down disable. So really just changes a lot about the personality of the shift stock or kind of floor control paddles, what you can do with that. It gives it more of a manual feel, from what I understand. Then OEM Plus is really just Sequential Style with OEM shift points, and so you basically cancel out all of the aggressive and sport or high torque aggressive. So again, we chose Cobb aggressive. That's gonna, I think, give me the best feel, something very distinct and different from what I have now. I'm not getting a little bit too over the top, and some of this Sequential Style is really something I'm not looking for. So stay tuned. 26%. It looks like this one's going to probably take 10 or 15 minutes at least to do the PDK, and then we'll hit the road. Okay, so we're wrapped up. It says turn ignition off position. After 10 to 15, turn on. So we will turn her off. Give it 10 to 15 seconds and turn her on, and this should conclude the install. So, honestly, couldn't be easier. This thing is very plug and play as advertised. Pretty idiot proof if you follow the directions. And, so from that standpoint, I can say before even driving the vehicle that as compared to some other tunes, obviously like old school tunes where you have to like take a chip out of the car and go crazy, all kinds of stuff. And even some of the other tunes out there, I think this is known as one of the easier ones for sure. The fact that this gives you the option to kind of play around with different maps, change your maps based on what you have coming up, you got a mountain drive or like a track day or something, maybe you do want to bump it up to that high aggressive torque setting. So I'd say points for sure for just how adaptable and easy to use this is. And that plays into the value. I mean, you do pay for some of that convenience. The people at Cobb have, spent some time obviously doing that. So, all right, we're going to fire this back up. And now that it's in the on position, we're going to hit OK. Install successful. Turn off position for at least 15 seconds before we start the vehicle. So I'm going to turn that off. We are going to close out of this. I'm going to disconnect the battery charger that's been on there, and then we'll take her out for a spin, and I'll give you my thoughts. All right, guys, we're going to take her for a spin. I'm going to start in standard, regular mode, no sport plus. So first we'll kind of start there, work our way up. I want to test the automatic settings without being in manual paddle shifting first. Then we'll go over to paddle shifting as well. So let's get started. So I can tell right off the bat, there's definitely some more responsiveness in the car. Even in normal mode, I mean, definitely drives a little more like sport. Shifting between gears is quicker. The shift points aren't dramatically higher, but again, that's because it's in just regular mode. You can definitely tell that the car is livelier. That's probably the best way to put it. Moving between gears pretty quickly, not a lot of hesitation. Normal mode, this is pretty nice. I think one of the downsides to the normal mode that's not tuned is I've always felt like it's really watered down. With the Carrera S, you're talking about a 400 horsepower 3.8 liter engine. I honestly never drove the car in normal mode because it really just doesn't do the car any justice whatsoever. So it is nice. I can tell you this has much more pep. So it is nice to know that you could put this in normal mode if you're just kind of around town, you're going on a road trip or something, and still get actual feeling of performance, but still, hands off and not crazy. I mean, obviously you don't want the car revving to 4, 5, 6,000 RPMs in between every gear if you're just running down the street to the grocery store or on a road trip, right? We're like on the highway or things like that. So, so this is definitely a nice upgrade in itself. That you get a definitely more aggressive standard mode that speaks to the fact this thing is a 911. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and switch the car into sport mode. We are coming up to turn off here where I can actually get some roads that are open. So go to sport. And immediately that just dropped a gear down to second, and it's still in second up to 4,000 RPMs. So you can definitely tell that the shift points have changed on the car as advertised, so that's nice. You can honestly tell a little bit more power. I mean, I know that's not as perceivable in an NA car, but I can tell you that I perceive more power in the pedal and less hesitation for sure on the car. So just that quick pull, which was honestly like 30% of the pedal down, I'm gonna be honest, it feels different. I know there's a lot of NA tuning haters out there that think this doesn't make a difference. And, is this the gains you're going to get out of a turbo? Of course not, but I can already tell you the car definitely feels different and it has more power. And this is just sport mode. The thing I'm definitely noticing is pedal response. So this car is incredibly responsive, but two things that kind of bothered me a little bit before the tune were just the slightest hesitation with the pedal where, I feel like if you're talking linear power, which is really what everybody loves, the whole point is that you almost feel like the power is translating from your foot through the motor and out the car in a just absolute linear fashion. And so I can tell you that with this tune, you get almost like an instant connection between your foot, the pedal, and the motor, which you didn't quite have without the tune, in my opinion. The other thing you get that was a big pet peeve of mine is that, especially first and second gear, in my opinion, this car tends to slip a little bit. I don't know if that's this particular car and its situation, but since I've gotten this 2 months ago, I've noticed it slips a little. I'm not talking a bunch, it's like the slightest bit of slip or kind of jitter that, you know, that's obviously not ideal. And so that is all but eliminated, which is also great. I mean, so we'll switch this into Sport Plus here in a second and give it a go that way. Pretty aggressive railroad crossing there, jeez. We're in first gear. Again, still an automatic, so I'm gonna do the paddle shifting lap. Wow, so the car, even in automatic, actually wanted to stay in first gear all the way up to 7,200 RPMs. So pretty aggressive. Some might argue too aggressive, in my opinion. Again, this is the aggressive map, so keep that in mind. There is a sport map, which is one below this, but I don't know that I want to drive with the car essentially coming 500 RPMs from redline by itself. Certainly want to bump the rev limiter, so what I'm thinking is that the Sport Plus is obviously giving you the open exhaust like the Sport. It's giving you a much more aggressive profile just based on the factory ECU and then the tune on top. So I'm thinking what probably makes sense is Sport Plus manual shift. That way I control the shift points, because in my opinion, based on that exercise, they may be too high, quite frankly. So I control the shift points. I can shift at 6,000 or 7,000 to be sure I know it's going to shift. And I still get all the benefits of the tuned element of Sport Plus. So we'll give that a shot. I'll take it down the road, see how I like that. But yeah, that was definitely aggressive. I don't think anyone could argue that the aggressive map is not aggressive. Yeah, that is super aggressive. I think it probably, you know, settles the argument in my head about the high torque aggressive map and people saying that's really just too much. I sort of agree. I mean, if that's Sport Plus and automatic, my goodness, that other map is ridiculous. So, all right, so we'll give this a shot. Sport Plus with manual shift. Wow. All right, so I'm going to tell you two things for sure I noticed right off the bat. One, just that power again. There is more power in this car. So, you know, we're talking 10%-ish, 15% if you add in the PDK. So, you know, they're advertising between like 10 and 15% horsepower gains, which on a 400 horsepower motor is, you know, substantial. You feel it. I'm going to be honest. Again, it's not like I threw 100 horsepower in this thing with a turbo, but a lot of people ask me, is it worth getting 30 or 40 horsepower with a tune? Are you going to feel that? Is it going to feel different when you drive it? Look, for what it's worth, I'm going to say yes, okay? It definitely feels different when I drive this car. A, there's more power. B, it is more efficiently and instantaneously transferred to the car. Other thing is the shift firmness is definitely upped. So PDK, as great as that is, in some sense it's almost too smooth. And I know that's kind of a weird thing to say, but it's so fast and it's so smooth. I think that's what, when people drive it, they're like, my God, PDK is, you know, where it's at. You know, if you want that. If you want manual, obviously, a whole different conversation, but almost too smooth. What this adds is just a little bit of kind of jolt, just a little tactile feedback when you shift gears. That I think is helpful if you want to feel more manual and more aggressive. I like the fact that the car, you know, does give a little bit of feedback. If I'm going to tell you one thing is different, it's the overall feel and the driving experience of being able to put foot to pedal, pedal to power, and power to output. And for me, that's worth it. So, in summary, as I mentioned, I bought this secondhand, so I paid about half price for this device. The device retails for like $2,000 with PDK. So the first question I'll answer is, do I think that this is worth it for what I paid? I would say the answer is all day. If you can find one of these for, you know, 11, 12, 1,300 bucks, you need to buy one. I don't care if you have an NA motor. I'm telling you, you will have a different driving experience. As long as you're not looking to get on a dyno and print out a chart and bring that to Cars and Coffee and show everybody, which I don't think think most of the people watching my channel, I don't think that's your MO. As long as you are more about driving experience and the effect that this will have on how the car feels when you drive it, absolutely worth, again, if you can find one of these secondhand, getting one of these for kind of the low thousands. Is this worth $2,000 retail price? That's probably a tougher question, to be honest. I think that if you have driven the car, okay, so you have a NA base or an NA Career S, if you've driven the car, you kind of feel like you've settled in to a benchmark where the car's performance is great, but expected, if that makes sense. It doesn't surprise you, it doesn't wow you. If you feel like you've reached that point with your naturally aspirated 991, I mean, $2,000 is relative. It's a lot of money. I think it's right on the fence, to be honest. I don't know if I would spend retail, but if $2,000 is like a medium or small investment for you in your vehicle, you know, everyone's coming at it from a different angle, then I would definitely get it. I mean, it adds a performance dynamic to this car that is the most important part of the car, which is how it drives and how it responds with torque and horsepower. So, you know, again, if it's me, as you guys know, you watch the channel, I'm kind of it's like a bargain hunter, but I'm all about ROI, bang for the buck. If I can trim $700, $800, $900 off an upgrade and roll that into something different, a nicer set of wheels or upgraded brakes, or I don't know, you know, whatever, I'm going to do that all day. So I would shop, I would hunt, I would try to find in the Facebook groups for 991, on Rent List, those kinds of things, put up a wanted to buy ad, whatever it is, try to find a secondhand one, because honestly, what's the difference? I mean, they all work the same. It's just a software computer. I mean, as long as you're sure it's unmarried from the vehicle you're buying it from and it's made for your vehicle, both of which you can check easily based on the model number, then pick one up secondhand. You know, it's absolutely worth about $1,000 or maybe just north of that all day. So I'm psyched. I'm really glad I did this upgrade. It just gives a life to the car that it just didn't have before. And for me, that was the entire reason of buying this car and doing this build, was to get a performance element that was lacking with the air-cooled 993. So I'm a fan. Really hope this video has been helpful. If you're thinking about this, to me, and surveying everything that was out there on social, there weren't a lot of user experience videos. I mean, for every 9 kind of how to install the Accessport video, there was maybe 1 that actually talked about the drive experience. So wanted to do this video for you guys. Again, this is just my opinion, so take it for what it's worth. Try to be as objective as possible and really pay respect to the common criticism about tuning non-turbo cars, and, you know, try to really tell myself, is it, you know, just because I have an NA car that I'm going to have sort of subconscious bias, or does this really make a difference? And my opinion, it makes a difference. It's worth it. You can get it around that price point. And, you know, I'm curious to hear your feedback. If you have one, you're thinking about getting one, drop something in the comments. Let me know what you think. As always, if you enjoyed this video, hit the subscribe button below. Really appreciate that as I build the channel and continue this 991 build and all the other videos on events and shops in town and trips and you name it. So thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next one.